We can choose our tribe, but we cannot change that our tribe is our destiny. Stefan Molyneux. This is Citadelium, episode 15, and I'm your host, Yuri Degaya. Today I want to discuss a term that has been floating on the internet recently, mostly in a negative light. That means that it has certain connotations, and most people discussing it on the internet today think that it's actually a negative term, while I stick to the actually quite positive definition of the word. And this term is tribalism. So most people think tribalism is something bad, is something to avoid, and it's no wonder that they think that, because there's actually quite a deliberate campaign to paint tribalism as something bad. But let's start with the definition first. I want to look at a couple of sources for the definition of the word tribalism, and this exercise will actually prove to be quite successful and interesting, because you will see that different sources have different definitions, and there's a slight difference in those definitions that makes actually a big difference in how people think about this term. So let's start with the American Heritage Dictionary of the English language, which defines tribalism as the organization, culture, or beliefs of a tribe, or a strong feeling of identity with and loyalty to one's tribe or group. This is a great definition. I think this is exactly what tribalism means, and I prefer this type of definition for the word. But then we have MerriamWebster, the famous dictionary that a lot of people use these days, and let's see what they define tribalism as. It leads us to the word tribal is actually that says that tribalism is tribal consciousness and loyalty, especially exaltation of the tribe above other groups. And then there's a second definition, strong in-group loyalty. Now, as you can see, these definitions are somewhat similar, but there is a big difference between the two. And I must say that the second dictionary, Merriam-Webster, is, in my mind, a tool of the parasites that they use to control people's thoughts. It's no surprise and no secret that if you control the language and you start redefining words, then people's thoughts also start changing, because people think in words. A lot of people have these voices in their head talking to them, and if you start redefining words, then those voices start talking in those new definitions, essentially, and thoughts literally change. I think there's been done some research on the topic on how the language is used to subvert people's thoughts and to create moods and whatnot. Language is a powerful tool, obviously, and this is exactly why writers are extremely important too, because they know how to use language and take advantage of the language to affect people's moods and people's emotions. So I believe that this dictionary, Merriam-Webster, is actually a tool for the parasites to do exactly that, to control the narrative, to change people's emotions, to change moods, and to change definitions of words, to change the way people think. So there's a big example here. As of recent, all over the news, there was this piece that said that Merriam-Webster changed its definition of the term sexual preference, because there was this court lawsuit or some court hearing in the United States where the defendant was using this word, and she was called out for using this term, and very fast the dictionary Merriam-Webster actually decided to change the word preference and to change the definitions of the word preference. If you can see, there's a good thing that the internet has tools like Wayback Machine, which actually can take a snapshot of a website on a certain date, and then if the website changes later, then you can compare the two snapshots and see that what changes were made on the website. And as one of the Twitter users, Steve Krakauer, noticed, the word preference had this definition at the very end that was dealing with sexual preference. And it was just completely neutral before. It said sexual preference and nothing else for the word preference. However, Merriam-Webster changed the definition and added the word offensive. So now, sexual preference, when you say the word preference and you mean sexual preference, that becomes an offensive term. So obviously it wasn't offensive before, but now sexual preference is something offensive, which in many cases and in many situations can change the meaning completely. And that was exactly what they tried to do. By going to court always goes to the sources of information, right? And one of those sources can be a dictionary. So the court says, okay, well, what do you mean by this? And then let's check the definition of the words that you mean. And they go ahead and they check that the definition of word preference means offensive. It's something offensive, right? So they will take that for granted, and they will build cases on these definitions. As you can see, very powerful tool, having access to the editing function of the dictionary, and that's why I do not trust Merriam-Webster at all. It's if you use any dictionaries, use something else. Obviously, there's more dictionaries out there. There's open source dictionaries too, and in terms of our topic today, in terms of tribalism, I prefer the classical definition, which is the first definition. Let me repeat it again. It means the organization, culture, or beliefs of a tribe and a strong feeling of identity with and loyalty to one's tribe or group. Obviously, this has absolutely no negative connotation. This is a very neutral term, and as a matter of fact, I view it as completely positive, as opposed to something that Merriam-Webster says, where they mention that this term especially means exaltation of the tribe above other groups. So they literally put your attention towards the superiority of one group compared to another group. So if you talk about tribalism, according to Merriam-Webster, you're talking about a group of people thinking that they are better than other groups of people. That's what it means in their definition, and this is completely wrong. Tribalism simply means that you are loyal to your group, that you share the values of your group, and you want to stick together. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything else. Now, if you've noticed, in the Bitcoin ecosystem, there are certain people who protest against the so-called Bitcoin tribalism in the ecosystem, and I think the reason for this is actually twofold. The first reason can be that the critics choose to use the second version of the definition of the word tribalism, and they pay too much attention to this part of the Merriam-Webster definition: exaltation of the tribe above other groups. So they think that we Bitcoiners think that we are better than everybody else, or like that our group is better than others, simply because we talk about Bitcoin and shitcoins, and obviously we use derogatory and funny terms to describe other coins that don't matter at all. They think that we basically exalt ourselves above other groups, which is entirely incorrect, of course. This is if there is a Bitcoin tribe, it's mostly built on top of the first definition, the neutral definition. But there's also a second part to this to this explanation, and the second part is more logical and more and more in terms of the knowledge of why we think the way we think. And the explanation for it is that they don't understand money. And as Bitcoin Tina said on Twitter, there is no tribalism, only the failure to understand money. What does it really mean? I'm not going to go into detail about how money works here or anything like that. I will just quote Ludwig von Mises from his book The Theory of Money and Credit, where he says, "Thus, there would be an inevitable tendency for the less marketable of the series of goods used as a media of exchange to be one by one rejected, until at last only single commodity remained, which was universally employed as a medium of exchange. In a word, money." This is what we think, and this is what we believe in. We believe that Bitcoin is that commodity, and after one by one, anything else, any other commodity is rejected by the market as a universal medium of exchange. Only Bitcoin will be left. There can only be one. And this is exactly why we are in favor of Bitcoin only, and we do not accept and we don't any other shitcoins. We don't believe that any other coin has any advantage over Bitcoin. Even if they have any technological advantage, they will not catch up simply because of the network effect of Bitcoin and some of its game theoretic properties. Again, you can Google all this stuff. There's so much research that has been done to date, and there are so many podcasts out there, so many articles. There's a trove of information out there. I highly recommend to get into this if you really want to understand how Bitcoin works and why Bitcoiners seem a little bit too toxic for the average individual. They are not really toxic. They are just I think Bitcoiners, so-called Bitcoin maximalists, simply understood the truth or stumbled upon the truth, and they don't care about anything else, and that's how it goes. Whether you want to call it a tribe or not, it doesn't matter, but it is a group of people that actually shares common values and common knowledge and common, maybe even the common tradition that's springing up right now in terms of Bitcoin. It's very interesting to see how the Bitcoin tribe is forming, because you can see that we already have certain dates in a year that we celebrate, like the Bitcoin Pizza Day, which commemorates or celebrates a day in which at which many years ago the first pizzas were sold for 10,000 bitcoins. And as a matter of fact, there is this Bitcoin Pizza Index that essentially shows how much those 10,000 bitcoins are worth at today's rates. Obviously, they're worth many, many millions of dollars at today's rates. And this kind of is an important day, because I think that was the first market transaction that in which Bitcoin was spent on actual goods. So obviously the guy who spent 10,000 bitcoins got his nice 2 pizzas, and the pizza guy got a bunch of Bitcoin. Hopefully he didn't sell. And there are other dates in Bitcoin, like the 3rd of January, which is when the Bitcoin network was launched. Really important date, and I'm sure there will be others too. We even had the Bitcoin wars already. Some of the war, which was about activating the SegWit soft fork on the Bitcoin network, and which was essentially against it was a fight against the corporate takeover of the Bitcoin network that was initiated by some of the Bitcoin and shitcoin companies back in 2017. They signed an agreement in New York that basically just unilaterally decided that this is how it's going to go, and the Bitcoin network didn't agree with them. The individual users of the Bitcoin network just didn't agree with them, and the plan completely failed. And right now, as Bitcoiners, we remember who they are and what they did, and we still discuss this to this day. We use the tools to remember all that stuff. We will never forget. And this I'm talking about it because this also describes how the tribe is forming, right? So yeah, whether you want to be part of it of the Bitcoin tribe, or you don't want to be part of Bitcoin tribe, doesn't really matter. I think it's kind of there, and some people say there is no tribe. I would say, okay, well, there may not be a tribe, but there's definitely a bunch of people who share the common interest and the common knowledge and the common, uh, you know, uh, definition of money, for example. And while they may not even get together physically in the physical world ever, they are an online sort of community, an online tribe. Other than that, of course, they can have different preferences on other topics like food and even sexual preference, right? But they do share this one thing, which is Bitcoin. So I think it's really important to understand. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is that tribalism is not only good in itself. I think it's also inevitable because if you think about it, what we're trying to achieve here is to establish sovereignty, right? To elevate individual sovereignty in people when it comes to Bitcoin, when it comes to citadels and building citadels, right? We want to make sure that people, individuals, get their sovereignty in many different domains and areas of life, and Bitcoin provides for financial sovereignty. You take the sovereignty of your monetary wealth into your own hands. You don't rely on third parties, as I discussed in the previous episode. So Bitcoin makes you financially sovereign, and so the tribal part of it is that while having Bitcoin, having several passports, or having your own food production facilities, having your own water, electricity, on many different levels, you can become a sovereign individual. You still need a tribe. What do I mean by a tribe? Nobody wants to be an outcast and live by himself in a cave somewhere, and live an ascetic life. There are people like they're still social creatures, and we need to be social. But what happens when you go into society? What happens is that you have to make concessions, and when you make concessions, essentially what you do is you give up some of your sovereignty. I'll give you a quick example here. When you start a family, when you marry, you have a significant other, and now suddenly you don't just live for yourself completely when you were all by yourself, a single person. Now you also live for your significant other, and this comes with its own baggage of concessions, right? For example, in many cultures, in the Western culture as well, you're basically not allowed. It's not ethical. It's not moral. It's not just even justified to go and see other people, in a romantic and sexual way. So you make a concession by marrying a person. You cannot do that anymore. You cannot go out with other people, and that cuts into your individual sovereignty. Now suddenly your sovereignty is reduced by a little bit, but you exchange that for something else, right? So it's a trade-off that we're talking about. Then when you have kids, suddenly you have less time to dedicate to your own hobbies because now you have to take care of the children. Again, that's a concession that you have to make. That's a trade-off that you have to make in exchange for having children. You replace one thing with another, and you can't just say, I'm a sovereign individual, I can do whatever I want. No, now you have a responsibility and you have to take care of your kids, and there's that. There's unless you're a bad parent, you have to follow through with your life choices. So this is where the topic of individual sovereignty is a slippery slope, because I hear some people who say, well, I'm just going to opt out of the system completely and never going to be involved in anything again, and I'll be a sovereign individual and just, I'm just going to be all by myself living my life in a very sovereign way. But no, as soon as you opt out, unfortunately, you still have to opt in somewhere. Not even unfortunately, it's actually fortunate because you will need someone to, help you out in times of danger or strife, and you have to opt in to something else. The difference is that when you opt out of the mainstream system, the mainstream mode of living, you can opt into the one that you actually prefer, or you can create one that you prefer, and that's essentially the topic of the whole podcast, Citadelium, right? You can create a citadel for yourself with your own rules, or join a citadel of individuals with whom you share values and with whom you like to share the same rules and ways of life, and that's exactly what it means. And then remember how I just said that when you start a family, you exchange some part of your individual sovereignty, right? Your actual freedom and liberty for that situation, for that life situation, which is marriage. Exactly the same happens on larger scales. Then you need a community, which is essentially a bunch of families that get together. When you are in that community, you have to give up more of your freedom and more of your sovereignty in exchange for communal services. You have to, help your community. So suddenly you have a responsibility, maybe, cleaning the street a little bit, or helping your neighbor with something which you may or may not like, but you probably are better off doing because at the end of the day, that neighbor may pay you back in the same way, right? And again, we can scale it up, and then we grow into a neighborhood or a village, and then we can grow into a town. We can grow into a city, and this is the citadel. The the more you grow, the higher your social structure grows, the less individual freedom and individual sovereignty you possess. This is just a trade-off that you have to make to live in a society, and if you don't like any of the rules, you can go and live in the forest. But unfortunately, I don't think you can do that. You still have to get together with some people, and we have to remember that people will never agree 100% on anything. So obviously there will be no perfect community ever in this, on this planet where everybody agrees absolutely on everything. There will be differences of opinion all the time, but there can be societies that are built upon certain shared values, certain shared culture and tradition that are so essential to this society that absolutely every single member of this society has to accept it in order to be there. Everything else, they can do whatever they want. They can enjoy their sovereignty in whatever the way they want, but the shared values they have to adhere to. So I think this is important in terms of tribalism because this is exactly what it means. When you build a citadel, you actually build a tribe of people who share the same values, a tribe of people who are loyal to each other and to the tribe in general. And this provides not only security for you as a member of the tribe, but it also provides a belonging. Because if you don't belong anywhere, like some people want to, anywhere, just completely opt out of society, I don't think it's gonna end very well for you because you're gonna be left off lonely. It's pretty much similar to how some people don't want to have children. At the end of the day, when they are old and fragile, they will regret their decisions. And I know personally some people like that. It's a sad situation to see, so you don't want to be like that. Your family is something that's very close to you. It's your closest tribe, and then your community is another level of the tribe that you can have. And the whole citadel, the whole city to which you belong is also part of your tribe, but just on a higher level. You want to belong somewhere. You want to have roots. If you don't have roots, you can make them happen, right? You can provide the roots for your children when they grow up. I highly encourage you to not think about tribalism as something negative. I think it's a great thing to have, and I want you to think about building your own tribes. If you're about to opt out of this parasitic fiat system that we have right now worldwide, it's a good time to look into setting up your own tribes, to look around and see who are the people around me who are like me in some ways, who share the same values, maybe things like traditional family values, or who are looking into the future, who have low time preference, things like that, and then get together with those people and think about how you can create communities, how you can create citadels together and live together happily after. Thanks for joining in this week, and I hope you liked the episode. If you liked it, please do subscribe at thegaia.co, and until next time.